They went to the Bahamas without me.
No invité.
Just expectations. So I packed my bags and rewrote the story they never thought I'd tell. I was halfway through reheating leftover Thai food when the email popped up. Reservation confirmation. Bahamas Grand Coral Resort. Name Sarah Bennett. Guess for. Check-in March 15th. Checkout March 23rd. At first I thought it was a glitch, maybe a spam email sent to the wrong Claire Bennett. But the email address it was sent to was mine, and the last name matched. Sarah was my younger sister, and sure, she had a tendency to book vacations on a whim, but why would her reservation confirmation come to me? I stared at the screen, chopsticks frozen midair. For guests. That usually meant Mom, Dad, Sarah, and someone else. Brian, probably. Sarah's eternally shirtless yoga instructor boyfriend. There was no mention of me. I told myself not to overthink it. Maybe it was a mistake. A glitch. Maybe Sarah typed my email address by accident when booking. Still something gnawed at me. I forwarded the email to Mom with a short message. Hey, I think I got this by mistake. Let me know if Sarah meant to send it here. Hours passed. Then a full day. No response. When Mom finally replied, it was just a vague, "Oh, not sure, honey. You know how these travel sites are. Probably a system error. Don't worry about it." No mention of a trip.
No clarificasten.
The pit in my stomach grew heavier. By the third day, I had almost convinced myself to let it go. I mean, maybe it was just a misfire. But then Sarah called. "Hey, Claire," she chirped, voice soaked in that faux sweetness she reserved for when she was either buttering someone up or hiding something. "So, I was just talking to Mom about her birthday dinner. And she mentioned that you might be free next month?" I think so." I replied cautiously, unsure where this was going. "Oh, perfect," she said too quickly. "Because we'll need someone to watch Rocky and Max while we're in the Bahamas. You don't mind, do you?" There it was. Not even a pause. "No, do you want to come with us? Or wish you could join? Just, we're going, you're staying, please feed the dogs." Bahamas. I echoed, even though I already knew. "Yeah." She laughed like it was the most natural thing in the world. "Didn't Mom tell you?" She probably forgot. "Anyway, it's just a week, and Max needs his meds twice a day, and Rocky gets anxious if he's not at home, and..." I barely heard the rest. My ears were ringing. It wasn't the trip itself that hurt. It was the secret. The quiet way they had planned it, the effortless exclusion, the assumption that of course I'd be available. Because I was always available. Always the backup plan. They didn't even try to hide it. I looked around my kitchen. Same chipped coffee mug. Same calendar with no vacations penciled in. Same life. Sarah was still talking. Something about snorkeling. I interrupted her. "So who all's going?" "Me, Brian, Mom, Dad. You know, just the family. Just the family." It took everything in me not to laugh or cry. I ended the call with a non-committal, "I'll think about it," and stood there for a moment, the silence thick around me. Then I opened my laptop and typed into the search bar, "Flights to Greece." After I hung up with Sarah, I sat in front of my laptop, the Greece tab still open. My cursor hovered over the Book Now button, but I didn't click. Not yet. Instead, I found myself scrolling through old photos on my hard drive. The kind that hadn't been posted anywhere, just quietly stored away. Graduation photos. My graduation. Boston University. Class of 2018. Summa cum laude. I remembered the day like it was yesterday. I wore a borrowed cap and gown because I couldn't afford the custom ones. My roommate snapped a photo of me outside the ceremony with my degree in one hand and a coffee in the other. I sent it to the family group chat. Dad replied with a thumbs up emoji. Mom texted, "Proud of you, sweetie." Sarah didn't say anything. There was no celebration. No dinner. No party. No welcome home, graduate banner waiting in the kitchen. 2 months later, when Sarah got accepted into NYU, my parents threw her a backyard soiree complete with catered sushi, fairy lights, and monogrammed cupcakes. The whole neighborhood came. She dropped out after 3 semesters. Said she wanted to find herself. So my parents funded her trip through Europe. Rome, Prague, Amsterdam, Lisbon, all paid for. Every time she posted a photo sipping wine on a cobblestone street, my mom would comment, "So happy you're exploring the world, sweet girl." I was exploring too. Just not the way that earned heart emojis. I was exploring how to stretch a minimum wage paycheck across rent, groceries, and student loans. I was exploring how to juggle 3 part-time jobs while maintaining a 4.0 GPA. I was exploring what it felt like to succeed quietly without applause. That kind of exploration didn't get Instagram comments. By the time I landed my job in marketing at a boutique agency, I had already stopped expecting praise. It wasn't disappointment, I wasn't bitter. Not exactly. It was more like I had accepted my role in the family story. I was the reliable one, the steady one, the "you're so responsible" one. They said it like it was a compliment. Sometimes it felt like a cage. But I didn't stay in that cage forever. 2 years ago, on a whim, I started a travel blog. It began with weekend trips. Small towns, hiking trails, underrated museums. I snapped photos, wrote down my thoughts, and shared itineraries. First, I thought no one was reading. Then the comments started trickling in. "Love this guide. Just used it in Asheville. Your photography is stunning. Are you on Instagram? Following you now. Can't wait to see where you go next." It grew. Slowly but steadily. As of this morning, my blog has over 20,000 subscribers. It's not massive, but it's mine. Every word, every photo, every itinerary, I built it on my own. And not once, not a single time, had anyone in my family acknowledged it. I brought it up at Thanksgiving once, casually. "I've been running a travel blog," I'd said, between bites of stuffing. "Oh, like for fun?" Mom had asked, not looking up from her plate. Sarah had changed the subject to her new yoga certification. Dad had reached for the gravy. That was that. It wasn't just about the trip anymore. It was about everything before it. The quiet dismissals. The lukewarm acknowledgments. The way I had become invisible in a house full of people who only noticed when I wasn't useful. As I sat there, bathed in the cold glow of my screen, I realized something that should have hit me years ago. I didn't want to be the dependable one anymore. I wanted to be seen. And if my family couldn't do that, then maybe I needed to go somewhere I could see myself clearly again. I turned back to the Greece tab. The flight dates overlapped perfectly with the Bahamas trip. It was poetic, really. This time I didn't hesitate. I clicked book now. The confirmation email hit my inbox with a soft chime, subject line. "Your trip to Santorini is booked." For a few seconds I just stared at it. My heart thudded once hard, like it wasn't sure if it was allowed to feel excited yet. I'd done it. 8 days in Santorini, a small sun-drenched Greek island I had once studied obsessively during an undergraduate photography course. I remembered tracing the whitewashed walls and cobalt blue domes with my eyes on magazine pages, dreaming of one day seeing it through my own lens. But dreams had always taken a back seat in my life. Practicality came first. Needs came first. Other people came first. Always. I stood up from my desk and walked toward the living room window. The sun was setting, casting long, soft shadows against the wall. I watched as my own silhouette stretched across the hardwood floor, silent and still. That's what I had been for years. A shadow. A quiet shape that moved through the lives of others without interrupting. I was the helpful one. The dependable one. The one who didn't ask to be seen, so no one bothered to look. And shadows, I'd learned, don't get invitations. They get assignments. "Can you help with the dogs? You're free that week, right? You're not the traveling type anyway." But I wasn't just a shadow anymore. Not here. Not now. Booking that ticket was more than a travel decision, it was a declaration. Promise to myself. I was going to Santorini. Not to make a point. Not to punish anyone. But because I wanted to go. Because I had earned it. I pulled out my old camera from the drawer. Dusty but still solid in my hands. The same one I had used back in college when I fell in love with capturing light, contrast, emotion. I smiled. Santorini would be perfect for that. Harsh Mediterranean sunlight. Blue sky meeting endless sea. Color and texture and movement. Things shadows never get to touch. For the first time in a long time I felt light. Not in the carefree, whimsical way that Sarah always managed to be, but in the way a burden finally loosens after years of clinging to your spine. That night I didn't tell anyone.
No announcements. No explanations.
No asking for permission. I just printed my itinerary and pinned it to the fridge, right next to the dog medication schedule Mom had dropped off the week before. My trip would begin the same day theirs did. Only this time, the dependable one was finally depending on herself. Sunday dinners at my parents' house had always followed a pattern. Same roast chicken, same side dishes, same subtle questions disguised as small talk. How's work? Still single? Any news? The kind of inquiries that skimmed the surface, never diving deep enough to reach anything real. That evening was no different at first. Mom was plating food, bustling between the kitchen and the dining room with her usual flair for drama. Dad was pouring wine, Sarah and Brian scrolling through vacation rentals on her phone, their heads bent close together. I sat quietly in my usual seat, second from the left, where I'd been since I was 13. No one asked how my week was. No one noticed the quiet smile I wore. We were halfway through dinner when Mom brought up the dogs, Rocky and Max, her pride and joy, second only to Sarah's glowing resume of abandoned dreams. "So, Claire," she began cheerfully, "I left a folder on the counter with their feeding schedule. You'll see Max's new meds are labeled clearly. And don't forget, Rocky needs his blanket at bedtime, otherwise he won't settle." I reached for my water glass, took a sip and set it down deliberately. "I won't be here," I said calmly. The room shifted, barely perceptible but undeniable. Like the air itself had paused to listen. Mom blinked. "What do you mean?" "I won't be here to watch the dogs," I repeated. Then with measured clarity, "I'll be in Greece." There was a sound. A sharp metallic clang as Mom's spoon hit her plate. Sarah snorted. "Wait, what? You're going to Greece?" Her tone laced with disbelief and a hint of amusement. "Since when do you go anywhere?" I didn't rise to it. Instead, I reached into my bag, pulled out the printed itinerary, and placed it in the center of the table like a winning poker hand. Santorini. 8 days. Departure. Same day as their Bahamas trip. Dad's eyes scanned the page, then flicked to me. He didn't say anything. Just looked like someone trying to understand how a chair had suddenly turned into a lion. Mom, on the other hand, was already spiraling. "But the dogs. The kennel is full. You knew we were counting on you." "That's the thing, Mom," I said, folding my napkin. "You were counting on me. Not asking. Not inviting. Just assuming." Sarah leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms. "Come on, Claire. It's not that deep. You didn't even seem interested in the trip." "No one gave me the chance," I said evenly. "You made plans without me." Again. The word again hung in the air like smoke, something acrid and hard to ignore. Mom pressed a hand to her chest. "You're overreacting. We didn't mean to exclude you." I met her eyes. "But you did. And you've been doing it for years." For a moment no one spoke. Even Brian had put down his phone. I stood smoothing my dress, heart pounding but voice steady. "I'm not asking for permission. I'm letting you know I have plans. And they don't include staying behind to clean up after everyone else." Dad shifted, finally clearing his throat. "Claire, sweetheart. You've always been the dependable one." "That's just a nice way of saying I was convenient," I replied. I gathered my things, tucked the itinerary back into my bag, and glanced at the untouched dessert. "You might want to ask Brian to help with the dogs," I added. "He seems to be part of the family now." Sarah scoffed. "That's not fair, he's allergic." I smiled tightly. How convenient. And with that I walked out of the dining room, leaving behind a stunned silence, and for the first time no one followed. Outside, the night air was cool and quiet, but inside me something had shifted forever. Santorini was even more beautiful than the postcards promised. Every morning I woke to sunlight pouring through gauzy curtains, the sea outside shimmering like polished glass. The rooftops were domed in that famous blue, the alleyways smelled of jasmine and grilled octopus, and the sky was endless. It didn't take long for my camera to become an extension of my hands again. I wandered the streets with no map, chasing light, chasing angles, chasing a feeling I hadn't known I'd lost. Freedom. I posted daily on my blog. Tiny stories, snapshots of color, motion, silence. I didn't try to be profound, I just tried to be present. And people noticed. By the third day my traffic had doubled. Readers commented things like, "I feel like I'm walking those streets with you. You made me cry and I don't even know why. Please never stop sharing." But it was a message in my inbox that made me pause. No subject line. No profile photo. Just a single sentence. I've been following you for a long time. Don't give up. I stared at it for a full minute. There was no name. No clue who it was. But something about the wording, the quiet urgency of it, made me feel strangely seen. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Because for the first time I wasn't writing for validation. I was writing because it healed something in me. I thought that would be the strangest moment of my trip. Until Sarah showed up. It was my 5th morning in Santorini. I'd just come back from a sunrise shoot and was sorting through photos in the Airbnb's kitchen when there was a sharp knock at the door. I opened it to find my sister standing there, arms crossed, eyes stormy. "What the hell, Claire?" she snapped, stepping inside without being invited. "You're seriously doing this?" I blinked, still barefoot, still holding my camera. "Doing what?" "This." She waved a hand toward the open laptop on the counter, where my blog dashboard glowed with dozens of new comments. "This pity party. This public meltdown. You're making us look like villains." I let out a short laugh. "Wow. You traveled across the world to protect your image." "I came because Mom is losing her mind. Dad's avoiding everyone. And Brian refuses to take the dogs out alone at night. Do you even care what you've done to this family?" "I care about what this family has done to me," I said. Sarah rolled her eyes. "You've always been dramatic." That was the last straw. I turned the laptop toward her, displaying a full-screen image I just uploaded. A narrow Santorini alley bathed in golden light. And there in the corner my own silhouette stretched against the stone wall. No longer hidden in the background but captured intentionally. Framed. "You see that?" I asked quietly. Sarah squinted. "It's your shadow." "No," I said. "It's me. For years I was the shadow. The helper. The she won't mind one. But not anymore." She didn't respond. So I walked to the balcony, motioning for her to follow. The Aegean Sea glittered below, bold and infinite. "I'm not trying to make anyone look bad," I continued. "I'm just finally showing up. For myself. For once." Sarah looked down, jaw tight. Her voice cracked when she spoke. "We didn't think you wanted to come. You didn't ask." The silence between us was heavy. But not angry. Just real. She turned to leave, stopping at the door. "You're not the same Claire I used to know," she said. I met her gaze. Good. That Claire was invisible. The door had almost closed behind her when Sarah turned back. There was something hesitant in her stance now, like a child who wasn't sure whether to confess or to run. "Look," she said, not meeting my eyes. "About the trip." I stayed silent, still gripping the balcony railing. She sighed, folding her arms like armor. "Mom did mention inviting you. First. But I told her you were probably too busy with work. That you wouldn't be interested anyway." My breath caught. "What?" Sarah flinched at my voice, low and sharp. "I didn't mean anything by it," she rushed on. "It was just easier. You always say no to family stuff. Or, you don't seem excited." I thought I was helping. Helping. The word hit me like a slap. So it wasn't that I'd been forgotten. I'd been removed. Quietly, strategically. Like a name crossed off a guest list before the ink could dry. I stared at her, words caught in my throat. All those nights I stayed late at work so Sarah could borrow my car. The time I postponed a trip to care for Mom after her surgery. No one else cleared their schedule. Every invisible act, every silent compromise. And this was how they framed me? Too busy. Not interested. "You didn't ask," I said again, my voice barely above a whisper. She bit her lip, eyes darting toward the floor. "I know." And there it was. Not an apology. Not really. But a crack in the facade. I stepped back inside and sat down, the weight of her words sinking in like cold water. My life hadn't just been overlooked. It had been curated, edited out of moments that were supposed to belong to all of us. Sarah lingered at the doorway, unsure whether to stay or flee. "I didn't think it mattered," she said quietly. But maybe that was the problem. I didn't respond. What could I say? Some betrayals aren't loud. They don't come with shouting or slammed doors. Sometimes they come dressed as practicality, wearing the voice of someone who thinks they're being helpful. She left a minute later without saying goodbye. And I sat there alone, staring at my inbox, At that anonymous message from days ago. Don't give up. For the first time, I wondered if it had come from someone closer than I thought. The day before my flight home, the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. Not after Sarah's abrupt departure. Not after days of silence from my parents' end. A tiny part of me wondered if she'd come back. Another, smaller part feared it might be Mom. Ready to lay on another guilt trip. It wasn't either of them. It was Dad. He stood there awkwardly. A small carry-on bag in one hand and something wrapped in brown paper in the other. He looked older than I remembered, like the past week had added years. Mind if I come in? He asked, clearing his throat. I stepped aside wordlessly, watching as he shuffled into the kitchen, placing the paper-wrapped item gently on the table. He didn't speak at first, just looked around at the scattered camera gear, the Greek souvenirs I hadn't packed yet, the half-eaten spanakopita on the counter. You've got a good eye, he said finally, nodding toward my laptop, where my blog was still open. I liked the one of the fisherman at dawn. The lighting on the net. Beautiful. I blinked. You read my blog? He looked at me, then really looked. I've been reading it for 2 years, Claire. I sat down slowly, trying to process that. But you never said anything. He rubbed the back of his neck. Didn't know if I was allowed to. You always seemed so independent. Like you didn't need anyone's opinion. I smiled faintly, something between amusement and pain. Everyone assumes that. He unwrapped the package. Inside was a lens, sleek, high-end, the kind I had only ever dreamed of affording. I noticed you mentioned needing something for low-light shots, he said. This one should help with that. I stared at it, speechless. Then he added, almost shyly, Midnight Seeker. That's me. I blinked, stunned. You're Midnight Seeker. He nodded. All at once it rushed over me. The anonymous encouragement, the consistent comments, the rare warmth I thought came from a stranger. He'd been there the whole time. Watching. Cheering me on. Quiet, steady. Like I'd been for them. I felt the sting behind my eyes before I could stop it. The tears came fast, unfiltered, not from sadness, but from the quiet, aching relief of being seen. Why didn't you tell me? I asked, wiping my face. I thought you needed space, he said. And I didn't want you to think I was only proud of you because you finally did something we all noticed. I laughed through the tears. So instead, you followed me from the shadows? He gave a sheepish shrug. Guess that's where I learned it from. I reached across the table and touched the lens, then looked at him. Thank you. He nodded. You deserved better from us. I see that now. There was a pause, heavy but gentle. Then he said, Your mother's still adjusting. But I canceled my part of the Bahamas trip. Figured someone ought to stay and make sure the dogs survive. My eyes widened. You didn't have to. I wanted to. He cut in, gently but firmly. And besides, Mrs. Chen's got it under control. I'm mostly just backup. Like you used to be. I smiled. He stood to leave, then hesitated at the door. I signed up to follow your newsletter. Hope that's okay. It's more than okay, I said, my voice soft but steady. It means everything. After he left, I sat there alone again, but not lonely. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't just the shadow. I was the subject in focus. And someone had been seeing me all along. After Dad left Santorini, something inside me quieted. Not the silence of being ignored. Not the kind that suffocates. This was a soft kind of silence, the space to breathe again, fully. The weight I had carried for years wasn't gone, not entirely, but it had shifted. Lightened. I could finally feel the difference between being alone and being free. I poured myself into writing. Not just trip reviews or restaurant recs. I wrote essays about solo female travel, about the pressure of being the responsible one, about what it meant to claim joy without asking permission. I wrote about the quiet grief of being needed but not known, and the radical act of choosing yourself anyway. I hit publish. Then I waited. It didn't take long. The post went viral within a day. Comments flooded in, women especially pouring out their own stories. I was the Claire in my family too. Thank you for saying what I've never been able to put into words. I didn't realize how much I needed this. It was overwhelming, beautiful, and deeply validating. But what surprised me most wasn't the strangers, it was the familiar names. Dad began commenting on every post. First just short reactions. Proud of you. Love this one. Great shot. But then he started getting more personal. This reminds me of when you were 12, taking photos in the backyard. You always saw things differently. Each comment felt like a thread, pulling us closer, slowly knitting back a connection I thought had unraveled long ago. And then Sarah. It started with a tag. She reposted one of my Santorini sunset photos on her Instagram story with the caption, "My sister's kind of killing it." That alone would have been shocking enough. But the next day she posted a photo of me, one I didn't even know she had, from my college graduation, camera slung around my neck, squinting into the sun. Her caption read, "I always thought I was the brave one, traveling to Europe to find myself. But turns out the bravest person I know is my sister. She didn't need to go far to find herself, she just needed us to see her." I stared at it for a long time. The likes piled up. So did the messages. But what mattered most was that she finally saw me. Not just as the fallback. Not as the built-in dog sitter or emergency contact. But as someone with her own story worth telling. Later that week she messaged me directly. "When you're back, I want to take your travel class at the studio. Maybe we could do a photography and presence workshop together. I think people would love it." Presence. That word stayed with me. Because for the first time in a long time I wasn't just showing up for others, I was showing up for myself. And the more I did, the more others followed. My last night in Santorini, I walked down to the cliffs one final time. The sun dipped into the sea like molten gold, casting the whole village in rose-tinted glow. I snapped a photo and posted it with a simple caption. "I came here hoping to escape my old story. I ended up writing a new one." Dad commented first. "Best chapter yet." And for once I agreed. 6 months later I stood in my parents' living room. Only this time something had changed. The furniture was the same cream-colored couch, the same wooden side tables with magazines that hadn't been read. But the walls? That's where I saw it. In the center of the dining room wall, above the buffet table where a tray of bruschetta sat untouched, hung one of my photographs. Santorini desk. Pink light spilling over stone walls. A woman's silhouette captured mid-step on a cobblestone path. My watermark was in the corner. My story in the frame. It was surrounded by others, photos from Paris, Montreal, Oregon, Lisbon. Framed. Glossed. Hung with intention. They hadn't just noticed me. They had chosen to display me. Mom was fluttering around in an apron, unusually flushed. Dad was by the fireplace, explaining camera angles to Uncle Ray like he'd spent the last 10 years as a Nat Geo photographer. Sarah and Brian were setting up a projector. "Claire," Mom called brightly, as if we hadn't spent decades skipping over each other's milestones. "We were just about to start." "Start what?" She smiled coyly and picked up a wine glass. "Planning the next trip." That drew my eyebrows up. I glanced around. Everyone was gathered, cousins, aunts, even Grandma, who had FaceTimed in from Florida. "We thought Italy," Mom said. "Rome, maybe Florence. Tuscany if there's time." I nodded slowly. "Sounds beautiful." Then she added, almost too casually, "And we want you to plan it." I blinked. "Me? You're the expert now," Dad chimed in from across the room. We figured, who better to handle the itinerary than our resident travel writer/photographer/guide? My first instinct was skepticism. A tiny voice still whispered, "Don't get used to it. This could be temporary. A phase." But another voice, stronger, newer, said, "Let them meet the version of you they never bothered to see before." I looked back at Mom, who was watching me closely. There was hesitation behind her smile. Not fear but humility. She was trying. Sarah stepped forward, holding a folder. "I already marked the dates, we're all free. You can pick the places. And the pace. We trust you." I took the folder, flipping it open. My blog logo was printed on the cover. Of all the gestures, that one hit hardest. It wasn't just an invitation. It was a handover. I closed the folder gently, then met their eyes. "Okay," I said. "But just so we're clear, this time, I'm not your backup plan." Mom nodded. "We know." Dad raised his glass. "To Claire, our guide, and finally our leading lady." I smiled. Not the small, polite one I used to offer when praised too late, but a real smile. Full. Unapologetic. Then buckle up, I said. We're doing Italy the Claire way. Laughter rippled through the room. Someone started taking notes. The projector flickered to life, and suddenly I was screen sharing my vision board. My favorite hidden trattorias, my sunset photo spots. No one interrupted. No one looked past me. They looked to me. Later that night, as I walked past the photo wall again, I paused. I used to be the invisible one, the shadow behind the scenes. Now my story was in the spotlight, and I was the one holding the map.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the bell icon for updates on new videos. See you next time.